Already China has succeeded very well as a peacemaker. So there will be confrontation between the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc, and this will escalate and become a world fair world war. We retain our old values. They have discarded their old values. I find that the US likes to provoke. For example, that visit by the speaker to Taiwan is a provocation. Before that, the relationship between China and Taiwan was quiet, calm. You have relation, but there is no confrontation. But when the US speaker visited Taiwan, China responded by showing that it is against the visit, that it insists that Taiwan is a part of China. So since then, there is tension because of the visit. And when there is tension, of course, there is preparation for war. While China will boost its own military capacity, Taiwan also is doing the same. But Taiwan has to buy the weapons from America. And that means that America benefits by having tension. Without tension, America doesn't sell weapons to Taiwan. Asian countries want to be friends with all countries. We trade with China. Perhaps China is our biggest trading partner, but we also have big trade with the US. So if there is peace, then all the countries will prosper. For example, in Europe, the Ukraine was at one time in the Russian bloc, but Russia decided to free Ukraine. I think Europe should feel very happy about that. But they wanted Ukraine to go against Russia, to join NATO. And when that happens, of course, Russia feels threatened. So that is a provocation, the invitation to Ukraine to join NATO. In fact, if the Ukraine doesn't join NATO, I think Russia will feel less threatened and there would be confrontation. But once the process is started and Russia take preemptive action, now there is a war between Russia and Ukraine. But the NATO nations are not involved because Ukraine is not a member of NATO. So they don't have to fight together with Ukraine. But for Ukraine, they have to fight against Russia. And that is costing them a lot of losses. China has taken a new role that is unusual because China now becomes a peacemaker. China is trying to solve the problem between Ukraine and Russia by urging them to make peace and to settle their problem. And this is a good role for China. Already China has succeeded very well as a peacemaker. For example, the confrontation between Iran and Saudi has been going on for hundreds of years. But after China intervened, now there is no more confrontation between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So that is a great success for China. And China should continue. Then China will be recognized as a country that wants to see peace in the world and to promote trade and joint prosperity. Yeah, they don't want China, but the fact is that the war is not going to solve their problem. They can keep on fighting and killing, and maybe Ukraine will be totally destroyed, And yet, there is no victory for either Russia or Ukraine. There will always be confrontation between them. Already we are affected. The rest of the world is affected. The cost of living has gone up. Supply of food grains, for example, which comes from Ukraine, is now difficult to get. So the cost of living has gone up. So this affects all the other nations in the world. And of course, the US will try to get other countries to join in the action against Russia. And Russia also will have to find friendly countries which will support Russia. So there will be confrontation between the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc, and this will escalate and become a world world war. We see differences between Asian values and Western values. For example, today, the Western people are very liberal. They have already discarded many of their moral values. For example, in the West now, marriage is not respected anymore. Even families are given different interpretation. And many of the old values in the West have changed. But in Asia, we still uphold our old values. We still think that moral values are very important. We still respect institutions of marriage and family. And China, for example, still is guided by people like Confucius. We retain our old values. They have discarded their old values. But beyond that, politically, for example, the West wants youth to change and become democratic, overthrow government, set up new regimes. And they do it in a way that is very disruptive.